You wouldn't be watching this and reading this if a gravel pit company had not applied for a license and a zone change for a gravel pit. The location is in close proximity to the town of Maryhill, impacting the lives of many. Somewhat unusual is the misfortune that 4 long-established businesses will be detrimentally impacted if this license and zone change are granted, such that these businesses will not be able to safely and effectively continue their operations. My name is John Shaman. I'm a medical doctor and my clinic is called the Ontario Aerobic Centre. In 1978, I started practicing cardiac rehabilitation, pulmonary rehabilitation, and sports medicine. A bit of history would be in order. My father, Simon Shaman, bought the property on the corner of Shantz Station Road and Hopewell Creek Road in the 1950s. It was 36 acres. My father had an interest in health and particularly in European health spa medicine. Initially, he constructed a Vita Parkour nature exercise trail with blueprints from Switzerland. We built 2 tennis courts, various swimming pools, including the region's first 25-meter pool, and several whirlpools for therapy, relaxation, and stress management. This is an aerial photograph taken in the early 80s showing the 25-meter pool on the far left, and on the near left is the round pool, and the cardiac 200-meter track is showing to the right of the 25-meter pool. This is the 25-meter pool, which was used in the late 60s and early 70s for teaching swimming lessons to the local young people and allowed for recreation in the hot weather in the summers. I received my bachelor's degree in biochemistry first at the University of Waterloo and then my medical degree at the University of Toronto. I specialized in the 2 pioneering fields of cardiac rehabilitation and sports medicine, and then started the first private practice in Canada in both of these fields, and since that time have seen over 55,000 patients. My vision statement in 1978 was to stop the progression of coronary atherosclerotic heart disease and to provide a top-quality outpatient cardiac care facility in a natural, stress-free, and serene environment. Stressing a patient-centered, not doctor and clinic-centered approach, as well as having a look-after-yourself attitude and discouraging the look-after-me mentality. Requiring considerable acreage for outdoor facilities, I chose the family homestead for my clinic. Utilizing the double tennis courts for the first exercise track, we then built the 200-meter cardiac track that we use to this day. It winds in and around trees and the natural environment that I hoped would be therapeutic and stress-free. Hidden under birdhouses are 6 special antennas that pick up the electrocardiogram signals of patients carrying special transmitters. These signals wirelessly enter the clinic to be analyzed by my staff and myself to help make exercise safer and more effective. The early patients at the cardiac clinic chartered the Cardiac Fitness Association in 1980, a charitable organization that would allow fundraising so that our unique program, unlike anything in the world, would be available to all who need it without cost. A subcommittee of the CFA, entitled the For Our Children Committee, has been meeting regularly over the past 3 years, designing a succession plan so that the clinic would continue operating when the doctor reaches his best before date. A motto at the clinic is, "Look after yourself, nobody else will." This isn't exactly totally true, as the staff and myself certainly care about the patients, and they care for each other. And the group support is a phenomenal phenomenon that is shown to be tremendously beneficial. The 200-meter cardiac track winding in and around the natural terrain is the mainstay of the outdoor exercise cardiac program. It acts as a foil from the stressful environment that many of the patients come from, and the serene, calm environment is extremely therapeutic. Many associate a medical office or a medical clinic as a place of discomfort and unpleasant thoughts, where we have tried to create a very relaxed, serene environment where patients can be calm and de-stressed as much as possible. I can't stress enough the importance of staying away from stress. A very large part of what the clinic does is help patients with their own personal day-to-day stresses. This set of photographs from the 80s shows a time when we used to use the swimming pool for cooling off in the summer, and a lot of our lectures at that time were outdoors. This graph shows the man-hours of supervised high-risk exercise. As you can see, it tapers up in the first few years to an average of between 5,000 and 6,000 man-hours a year. And in total, we have now exceeded 250,000 man-hours of supervised high-risk exercise. How high risk? Well, we've had 13 patients that have died at the clinic that we had to resuscitate. Fortunately, we were successful in all regards. The Dalai Lama, when asked what surprised him the most about humanity, stated, "Man, he sacrifices his health to make money, and then he sacrifices his money to recuperate his health." A carpenter uses a hammer. A physician and a cardiologist uses a prescription pad. A surgeon uses a knife. At the Ontario Aerobic Centre, our main tool is lifestyle change. Changing those aspects of lifestyle that are detrimental to health, including getting exercise, managing stress, including meditation, diet, and group support. Something that I continue to stress to patients on an ongoing basis is the fact that the most successful bypass procedure or interventional angioplasty with stent procedure doesn't begin to address the disease process. And really, the only person that can address the disease process is the patient. This involves making very comprehensive changes in life, and this slide is a slide that I have used thousands of times. I end a lot of my lectures with this slide, stating that heart disease is a disease of choice. You decide how much you exercise, you decide how much you eat, you decide what you eat, you decide if you smoke, you decide the kind of life you live. In the modern day world, we're driven by overloaded calendars, never-ending obligations, insurmountable responsibilities. Our brains are chronically overstimulated, frequently causing an almost constant outpouring of stress hormones. These hormones prepare the body for fight or flight, an outcome that is rarely, if ever, appropriate. That this leads to chronic disease and illness is not difficult to understand. Here's one of our patients enjoying his walk in the natural outdoor, calm environment, stress-free. It was only very recently that I realized that in Japan there was a discipline called Shinrin-yoku, which translates into English as forest bathing or bathing in nature. It is recognized and integrated into the National Public Health Program in Japan, and researchers have discovered very significant physiological benefits. To me, this was a surprise to find this out 30 years after I started my own program with essentially the same goals. And now to the effects of the potential gravel pit. Air quality would be a concern. The crushing and processing of gravel likely propagates silicates and other carcinogenic agents. To healthy individuals, the impact may indeed be long-term. To a cardiac patient suffering from varying degrees of heart failure and a lung patient with pulmonary compromise, there could and probably would be significant, considerable negative sequelae immediately. I don't even want to consider this possibility. After going to so much trouble for all these decades to provide an environment of stress-free, clean, fresh air, this would certainly be devastating. This is an aerial photograph of the proposed Shantz Station gravel pit in blue, the rectangle, and the red lettering, the MHGC is the Maryhill Golf Club, which is right adjacent, touching the property of the proposed pit. The SJK to the south is the St. John's Kilmarnock School. The OAC to the left of that, Ontario Aerobic Centre, is my clinic. And directly east, GF, as you can see there, is the Grutendorst Farm. The Grutendorst Farm is a massive, very impressive operation. It's one of the largest dairy farms in Ontario. 1,400 cattle call this home. Produces over 7 million annual liters of milk. Tremendous research goes on here with the University of Guelph and the Dairy Farmers of Ontario and others. It cultivates over 1,000 acres of farmland, has hosted over 6,000 University of Guelph agricultural students, as well as hosting numerous international and government tours. It is a very state-of-the-art facility, and the monitoring of air quality and temperature is very impressive, reminding me of some of the more modern hospitals. All cows have a Fitbit for health control. This is a very quality operation like none other. Likely the biggest impact on the patients and staff of my clinic by this proposed gravel pit will be traffic and noise. Although the actual noise from the pit operations may well be disturbing and disrupting, it is the truck traffic passing past the clinic that will have the most detrimental impact. Calculations based on the maximal tonnage limit included in the license, I projected a worst-case scenario of potentially 35 to 60 trucks passing the clinic, coming and going per hour. Mr. Lorenko of Capital Paving then corrected me, stating he wanted to correct, and he quoted, "some incorrect assumptions outlined in my letter, specifically regarding the truck traffic, for example. My fear is that it appears your patients who also sent letters and emails are under the impression that your assumed calculations are correct and causing some unjustified anxiety. For over 40 years, I have spent considerable time and effort to reduce the anxiety and stress of my patients. I looked at this as a serious accusation. I then remembered the adage, statistics never lie, but liars use statistics." I started to worry that maybe it was I that had miscalculated. Had I somehow not understood all the details in my calculations? I went back to the drawing board and I redid my calculations. 500,000 tons of gravel per year, so many workable months per year when gravel would be needed and could be harvested, so many days per week, so many hours per day. I consulted with several dump truck drivers and operators. Still, the numbers were similar to the previous ones. My patients were worried and troubled regarding the impact of this potential gravel pit and asked me for an update. I therefore published in our clinic newsletter an update, and what this stated was, my projection translates to a possible 35 to 60 trucks coming and going per hour passing the clinic. This would be crippling. Surprisingly, Capital Paving is suggesting only 4.6 trucks per hour. The numbers don't add up, close quote. I invited concerned patients to come to the meeting at the Township Hall on September 10th. And then I finally discovered the reason for the truck number discrepancy, as I received a letter from Mr. Lorenko on September 4th. And in this email, he had attached a letter, and he asked me to read the attached letter regarding the truck traffic estimates and the incorrect information being posted on your health center webpage, close quote. In the attached letter, he stated, quote, I'm writing to express my concerns about the September 2019 newsletter circulated by your health center and posted for public viewing on your organization's Facebook page, in which you continue to incorrectly claim that 300 to 500 trucks per day would pass along Shantz Station Road from Capital Paving's proposed Shantz Station pit. As you know, I called in to correct this information, which was presented on the 570 News Mike Farrell radio show on July 25th, 2019, and also provided you with correct information in my letter to you of August 26th, in response to your objection letter to our proposed gravel pit letter of July 19th, 2019, as well as in our August newsletter, which was circulated by email and regular mail. I also extended an invitation via email on July 31st to meet directly with you to discuss your concerns, and have received no response. Below is the calculation of the correct average number of trucks that would be passing along Shantz Station Road each day, assuming the pit was operating at maximal capacity. So now it all made sense. As you can see, the calculations made by Mr. Lorenko and Capital Paving showed a number of operating days per year of 275, which is way above the number that I was given by experts in the field as being feasible. They also had a tonnage that was 30.6, which was 45% higher than the usual trucks used. And also they were operating 13 hours a day, which I was told was totally ludicrous. And they came up with an average number of trucks per day of 59 by the green circle and 4.6 per hour, the other green circle. After this explanation, his letter went on to say, I would request that you please correct the truck traffic information you have provided to your patients, staff, and Facebook followers as soon as possible. I found Mr. Lorenko's tone of his letter, particularly this one, to be quite threatening. I had a dilemma. I now saw why there was such a discrepancy between Capital Paving's trucking numbers and mine. I was basing my numbers on the reasonable months, weeks, days of the year, hours of the day I had been given by experts and professionals in the gravel trucking business. Capital Paving was spreading out the work over many more months, weeks, days of the year, and hours of the day, and also truck volume than was reasonable. I was informed in the trucking industry that by far the most common truck is a 21-ton truck. Capital used 30.6-ton trucks in their calculation, 46% more per load. Also, Capital Paving was only counting the trucks going out. Why? Every truck going out must come back. My count included outgoing and incoming trucks. So we seemed to disagree. So it was obvious to me why there was such a discrepancy. Capital Paving was using a number of days of the year of 275, shown in red. That is very unreasonable from the point of view of reality. It shows trucking at 30.6 tons per truck, whereas almost all trucks, or most trucks by far, are only 21 tons. It also shows 13 hours a day, which the industry workers are telling me is ludicrous. And of course, using that calculation, there's a 59 trucks per day and 4.6 trucks per hour. So I remembered another old adage. You have to have an open mind, but not so much that your brain falls out. So I thought, if theory and statistics don't solve the problem, maybe doing some actual measurements, field tests, so to speak, would help. And indeed, on Thursday afternoon, September 5th, 2019, I sent out a team of an engineer and a helper to record all truck movement as well as sound measurements using a high-quality decibel meter to measure at least 2 pits to see what kind of action there was regarding trucks going in and out, etc. The results were shocking and staggering. The first pit, the trucks going in and out, measured exactly 64 in 1 hour. Extrapolating that to a 13-hour day, that would be 832 trucks per day. The second pit had slightly fewer at 57 in an hour. Extrapolating that to 13 hours, 741 trucks per day. The baseline decibel C measurement was 40 to 45, and the peak with gravel trucks was 80 to 100. As much as these numbers were shocking, I was concerned that possibly the pits that we measured were much larger than the proposed Maryhill pit. So I found an online gravel pit charting system that helped identify operational pits giving their licensed tonnage. So I looked around for 500,000 tons per year to be the same as the proposed Maryhill pit, and we went to measure one of these on Monday afternoon, September 9th, 2019. What we found was even more staggering. At pit 5483, operated by Dufferin Aggregates, with a tonnage license of 500,000 tons per year, the trucks going in and out in 1 hour totaled 86. Extrapolating that to a 13-hour day, that's 1,118 trucks per day. Statistics never lie, but liars use statistics. The difference between 4.6 trucks per hour versus 86 trucks an hour is not even in the same ballpark, nor is 59 trucks per day versus 1,118 trucks per day. I was accused by 1 or 2 township councillors of having fudged my numbers. I was accused and threatened by Mr. Lorenko that my numbers, from calculation not from measurement, were incorrect and causing unjustified anxiety. We have detailed notes and records of every truck going in and out during the time of measurement in all of our tests of 3 different pits. The difference in the proposed numbers of Mr. Lorenko and our actual counts is so drastic, it's hard to contemplate what this means. I understand that gravel is needed. I don't argue with that. But where do we harvest this gravel, and at what cost? In the backyard of 4 important long-term proven businesses that provide an important and vital service to the community and our citizens. A world-class dairy farming operation that serves as a national and international model of excellence. A golf course that has served the community for many decades, providing sought-after recreation and needed activity, the premier executive-length golf course in the region, a school that has for 45 years educated some of the finest graduates in the country, a medical clinic of 42 years, pioneering lifestyle medicine as an alternative to the pharmaceutical easy way out, with actual proven reversal of coronary heart disease. Now, to address the issue of location, we have here a map drawing of aggregate deposits within the Township of Woolwich, provided by the province of Ontario in 2010. And it shows 3 levels of deposits: primary, secondary, and tertiary. Primary is the darkest shading, secondary the next darkest, and tertiary the next darkest. The white areas are not felt to have decent gravel. So if you look at the diagram where we zoom in on the proposed pit, Shantz Station pit, on the right-hand side of the map, and you can see the rough rectangle in red. And if you look at that, you have to admit that there's really hardly any gravel there. There's no primary, there's no secondary, and there's only, my estimate is about 15% of the property only has tertiary gravel. To the south of that, right where the clinic is actually primary gravel. But on the site of the proposed pit, I don't understand why this would be chosen. I had two quotes from some patients around the time we were discussing these potential problems at the clinic. And one retired university professor stated, "If you can't go into the country to find peace and quiet, where can you go to find it?" The other quote from a patient who was a long-time nurse in the healthcare system for decades: "Needing gravel does not justify the choice of just any location." And now in closing, I'd like to make a statement about trust. Trust must be earned. The difference in being misleading and lying is often difficult to distinguish. In the medical and scientific community, misleading researchers and those that fudge their results for institutional, company, and/or personal gain often lose their licenses and their credentials. Occasionally, they go to jail. How does the gravel industry deal with this? If someone misleads and/or lies, how can they be trusted in anything else they say or profess?